Hey, what's going on, guys and gals, and welcome to this interview video, man. This is actually so weird that I'm saying that. Never thought I'd be able to interview literally anyone ever, but, I had this opportunity. Huge thank you to Ethan for coming on and, allowing me to interview him not only once, but twice. I'm a very scuffed YouTuber. But on a real note, I really enjoyed editing this and just interviewing Ethan, just the whole process behind it. It was great, honestly, and I think you all will enjoy it. I know it's a super, super long one, but I promise you it is worth it. I will leave Ethan's links all in the description down below. I'm not too sure if Ethan's going to be live watching this on the same day it releases. Regardless of that, I'm pretty sure he will watch this video at some point on stream. So go ahead and follow his Twitch. I'll leave that in the link in the description. As well as that, I'll leave the Bad Business Discord link in the description as well. But I hope you all enjoy this interview. Now, let's go ahead and start this interview for the second time. Let's go. Hopefully this will be the second and last time. All right. Well, first off, since we got cameras on this time around, I want to have you introduce yourself a little bit, give yourself a little bit of, backstory, introduction, that type of thing.
So I am Ethan, also known as Rudev Ethan, the product manager, lead game designer on Bad Business. I assume that everyone that is watching this knows Bad Business, at least. But yeah, I've been with the game since the founding days when it was just me and Eld, the other founder.
I want to go ahead and lead off with this question because I know this is such a big part of the game. The game is very, very competitive and people play really competitively. So, is comp or ranked planned at being released at some point or just some point soon? Like, can you give it like a time frame or something on when you think that would be releasing, or even if it's not releasing?
We've talked about it before. Right now, the game isn't in the best state to have like a ranked mode. If we were to do it, we would do what we were talking about before, which was pro servers. Those would basically be level 60 and up, get access to competitive modes and competitive maps. The issue is that right now, our player base just like doesn't support something like that because, right, like we need to prioritize ping, really, basically, and that is what Roblox does in matchmaking to get the smoothest experience. But because we only have so many people online at a certain time, we can't separate those people out of the servers that most people are playing in, right? It's something that we like really want to do, but unfortunately it's not something that we can do without hurting the majority of our players until we have a little bit more people to be playing at any given time.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. It does, but yeah, another question I actually had, this is a new one, obviously, but what are your thoughts on a potential global leaderboards? Like maybe like a monthly leaderboard, see how many people get like the most amount of kills in a month, or I don't know, something with KD, anything like that, just global leaderboards.
Well, I've been wanting to make something like that for a really long time. I mean, not me personally, because I'm not the programmer, but I've been wanting to like prioritize that as something that we do. Of course, like the biggest concern there is exploiting. Roblox has a huge exploiter problem, which everyone that plays Bad Business knows that.
Yeah.
And so there's some limitations there and how we would want to go about that, and how we want to like possibly limit it so that exploiters can't just like bypass it, or maybe expand the moderation team in some way so that they can analyze those players and make sure that they're not cheating. But I don't know, maybe Bifron, or however you pronounce it, the anti-cheat company that works under Roblox Corp now. Hopefully they are able to do enough work that we don't have to worry about that as much, and we could add in those leaderboards. Or of course, we could also like just have a level-based leaderboard when we unlock the levels eventually for the progression revamp. I don't know. There's like different routes that we can go with that, but it is something that I've always wanted to do. I think that it's like a really social aspect that would add a lot to the game, but yeah, at least at the moment, it's kind of hard to do with the exploiting problem.
Yeah, and, good thing you were starting to talk about, Bifron, exploiting all that. Do you think you'll see less bans because of Bifron? Do you think that's really going to help out in the long run?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're already seeing a reduction, and we're already also like hearing from. I mean, we're here. Whatever. But I've heard at least that there is like more work being done constantly, which makes a lot of sense. I mean, Roblox bought that company for $10 million. I think it was like 9.6 million or something like that. And ended up like retaining, I think, pretty much everyone at the company. So, even though it's not going to be like a catch-all solution, even though we're still going to have to be doing stuff for anti-cheat, it's like a step in the right direction, and it's a testament to the fact that they actually want to change how things are working there. So yeah, I think it will help a lot. I don't know, again, if it will totally fix things. I don't think it can. No anti-cheat can stop exploiters completely. But I still think that it'll be way better than it was, obviously.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, even just like this past week alone, I've noticed like that I haven't really been like encountering any cheaters like at all, and not just only in like bad business, but like any other game. So I think they're doing a pretty good job about it.
Yeah, the only downside is the FPS Unlocker issues.
Yeah, that is a downside.
I have high hopes that they will create native support for it in the future. Not because of any inside information or anything, just I think that it would make a lot of sense. And with their public approval, both years ago and recently, in the company from people saying that anti-cheat won't ban FPS unlockers, I think that it shows that they want that to be the future. But obviously that's a big undertaking, and it's probably not the flashiest feature that they could work on. So typical corporate stuff probably going in the way, but I think in the future it'll be native, hopefully.
Yeah, I did see some things about it potentially being like native. I did see some things on Twitter and stuff like that, so hopefully it does. My next question I got for you is, will we be seeing more equipment sometime soon?
Absolutely. On my stream, which was I did it for like a week, I plan on going back to it. Sorry to everyone that's watching this that is like, oh, this was great when we were getting like 4-hour stints of talking to Ethan as well. But just been a weird week or two.
Yeah.
But on my stream, I already leaked actually 2 new equipment. One was a new throwing knife variant, which is going to be the throwing axe. I'm forgetting the name.
Tomahawk?
To be honest with you. Yeah, the Tomahawk. That'll have like a different arc from the regular throwing knife, and we're gonna kind of try and figure out other ways that we can differentiate it. And then we also have a Semtex already modeled and planned to be added very soon. But we have a ton of other equipment. I've talked before a lot about the like Ash shotgun from Overwatch, or the Force of Nature is what it's called in TF2. We want to do something like that as equipment where it's basically a directional blast that sends your character kind of flying a little bit.
Yeah.
That is specifically to like level the playing field between people that have computers that allow them to super jump and ones that don't, or people that don't know how to like get unlocked FPS right now, apparently, because again, it is like a little bit more inconvenient to do that. So I would imagine that people are mostly running at 60 right now instead. And so that's just to like level the playing field so that you don't have to super jump in order to get to certain spots or in order to do certain things. Yeah. Aside from that, there's a lot of other things planned though too.
Yeah, but would that be locked to, how would I say it? Like, would that be locked to consoles and mobile only due to like PC players already having the ability to super jump? Because my biggest thing with that, it would be like, what if somebody, like, you super jump and right before you super jump, you use that and you get an even way bigger jump because of that?
No, we may end up making some like detection so that if you're in the air for a certain amount of time, you can't use it. But, or maybe it just like doesn't boost you as much unless you are up against a surface, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think super jump and that can exist together still. I think it's just a matter of balancing, obviously. I don't think that we want to lock anything to one platform, even if it is something like that. Just a really fast way of making disparities within the community that just don't feel good.
Now, you went ahead and we already talked about the whole sniper thing. I made a whole video about it. You responded to it and everything. And one of the things that you mentioned in that response was a new one-shot zone. And you said that this was going to be applied to all weapons. And I was wondering, would you go about balancing it not only just for the snipers, but for every other gun in the game as well?
Yeah, so to clarify what you're talking about, right now there is body damage, which is limb, so arms and legs. Then there is chest or torso, which is obviously the middle part of the character. And then there is head.
Mm-hmm.
What we've been talking about testing, this isn't like a guaranteed thing that's going to happen necessarily, but what we want to put into the PTR and see how it performs for a little bit is including shoulders, so like a very small portion of the arm, into the torso or chest damage multiplier. Right now, the way that things work, or should work, I know that there's some like discrepancies and we're still looking into those, but if your arm is blocking your torso, but the bullet would theoretically still go into the torso, you will do torso damage. So right now, shoulders are effectively already part of that torso zone when they are covering the torso. So basically when you're looking at someone from the side, right?
Yeah.
What this would do, though, is effectively make it so that the hitbox for one-shots or for torso damage in general is just a little bit wider, which is obviously one of the biggest things that people talk about in bad business, is that they feel like the hitboxes are really skinny, especially when they're coming from Phantom Forces. So that would make, I think, things a little bit easier to hit, but I also don't think that it would be completely broken, especially because, again, from the side, it's already the case, or should already be the case. Again, I know that there's some discrepancies, and unfortunately, they're kind of hard to replicate consistently, at least.
Yeah.
And we're still looking into it, but we kind of need some better tooling on our end, I think, in order to really diagnose these issues. That being said, we fully are committing to making that still a thing. But in terms of the test, I'm really hoping that we can do that this month at some point. Screw, our fairly new still programmer, had to do this really boring task for us for a little bit, and now is able to do some other stuff. So this is one of those things that I'm going to have him be working on as well. But again, this will apply for everything. I don't want different hitboxes per weapon in terms of like some having upper chest multipliers and some not having it, or some having shoulder multipliers and some not having it. I want it to be consistent because this is ultimately meant to be a casual game, and I think that adding some complexity in that region just doesn't really make a lot of sense and would just hurt the first-time user experience when they do something and then something happens that doesn't quite match up with what they were expecting. So, yeah, again, also, I think you were talking about like it being the one-shot zone. For certain snipers, obviously, that is the one-shot zone. But again, this would apply to everything with chest damage, which is everything.
Another thing that I wanted to ask, because this is something that I feel like really connects the communities. When you do events like Glickshot or Drip Business, things of that nature, I feel like those events are really great because they bring the community together. Do you plan on doing more community events such as those two?
I wish I could say yes, because I agree. I think that it does like help bring the community together, and it gives everyone a little bit of a purpose. I think that there are some ways that we could even do that in game, and I think that might be more manageable on our end, like monthly community challenges, right? But unfortunately, in the form that they exist in right now, it's really difficult for us to organize and run and even like plan them initially, right? And like I mentioned before, I'm the lead designer and I'm the product manager, but because I'm the lead on the team in general, I fill in a lot of roles. And one of those roles inherently is community manager. And that's something that a community manager normally would be doing, but I just don't have the time in my day necessarily to do something like that. And to be quite frank, when we've had other people do it for us, things haven't really worked out very well behind the scenes. It's led to a lot of tension, especially if it's like a volunteer thing. So previous experiences just kind of like are limiting us there, and also my schedule, unfortunately. Maybe someday in the future, but at least not right this second. There's no plan.
Do you plan on doing any more revamps like the M4A1 and M16?
Yeah, absolutely. The M4 and the M16 specifically were done because the contractor Minkle that wanted to do it really wanted it to do it. And it also made sense because the M4 at least is an extremely popular gun, so having it match the standards of recent models made a lot of sense to us. But it was cool having the opportunity to iterate on previous design and fix some of the issues that we had the first time, and also add in new content. Like, neither of those guns got a lot of new content necessarily, but they did get a couple of new attachments in total. And there's definitely some weapons that were first added in that need, or that were like added in when attachments were first added in, right? That need a little bit of help because they just didn't get a lot in comparison to the weapons that we release now. So a big example of that is the machine pistol Scorpion, right? That's one that has very, very few attachments, but we really want to go back to. The community suggestion thread that is surrounding the Scorpion revamp is very helpful to guide us in the direction that we want to go in with it, as well as recent changes to the machine pistol category, like the lower bullet velocity that is inherent to them now. The Scorpion has a lot of potential to become a lot more unique and to become a lot more usable in general. So we want to do that, but there's a few others that we're also like working on behind the scenes and would like to touch up, but it's obviously a balance of making sure that we have enough content that will obviously generate revenue and keep the game going, as well as iterating and polishing old content.
And speaking about content and things like that, I mean, I've seen a lot of players, and I know you definitely have as well, complain that they don't feel like there's anything much to do. Like, there's not really much to do in the game. And I feel like, would you be opposed to adding like a system similar to a battle pass? I'm not saying a battle pass, but similar to one. Because I feel like that could improve the grind aspect of the game for some players.
So the progression revamp that we've talked about before would kind of bring something like a battle pass into bad business. The difference, I'll explain really quick, the progression revamp. The idea is that the existing prestiges that we have become kind of like Master Chief Collection battle pass system, where you can choose which one to progress. They never go away, obviously, but you can choose which one to progress at any given time and get the rewards from there. And then the idea is that there is a career level that is separate from all of that, that players can level up infinitely as well. That would increase the potential of just like grinding out a level to be a high level, to be maybe the highest level, or to be higher than your friends at the very least. But it would also allow us the opportunity to create new prestiges of content that everyone can enjoy, because something that we really want to do is just increase engagement when we're adding in new content. And the issue with battle passes is that they really only increase engagement if people are paying, because obviously free like routes in the battle pass are just not that good usually, and that's in order to get people to pay. And we really want to be pretty fair to the customer and pretty fair to the player as well, not just customers, because not everyone is paying money to play the game. And so one issue that we have right now with adding in new prestiges is that it takes a really long time for people to get to those prestiges. In terms of stats, we don't really have those anymore, unfortunately, because Roblox took away our analytics tracking service. But I know for a fact that it's a really low percentage of players that are Prestige 5 level 60. There's a lot of players that are not even Prestige 1. And so that means that when we add in new content for higher levels, right now, it's super locked away. And it doesn't really generate a lot of excitement for other people. A good example of that is that recently the GLK update and the Cyber AK, obviously. There's a lot of reasons, mostly probably the release date being on a Sunday, like midday. But the update didn't do particularly well. It did okay. Like, we're not in any trouble right now. But I think a part of it as well is that the GLK is a Prestige 4 weapon. And we're still going to commit to making Prestige 4 a full Prestige. So that'll be by doing new guns, but also by adding in new cosmetics, which we're working on. But the new progression system, the revamp, whatever, will allow people that even if they are a low level, they can join the game when a new prestige gets added and immediately participate in that fun.
Is the Trello something you would like to bring back? Because I see a lot of people talking about that, they miss the leaks and stuff like that. And I already know the reason why there's not as many leaks and stuff. But for those people that miss the things like the Trello or just constant leaks every month, like, could you address that as well?
Yeah, so we used to release leaks basically when we were working on them. The issue with that is that things in game development take a really, really, really long time in order to implement them into a game for a variety of reasons. But people didn't really understand that, and we were getting like constant issues of harassment to developers and just like general badgering as well, no matter what platform we were on, when something wasn't being released right when we leaked it. Obviously, that is good because it was generating excitement, but it also seemed like that excitement was lost pretty quickly after we leaked those things. So as a result, I told our contractors that we're going to slow down on that. We're only going to leak things when they are in a presentable state and will be pretty close to release. And similar to all of that is the Trello. The Trello was meant to display to people that we were working on things, not necessarily that things were about to come into the game, or not necessarily what was in the game or in the PTR at the moment. That's kind of what it morphed into, and it led to a lot of the same issues that the constant leaks did, where like a weapon would be in the in progress tab or the working on tab 4 months at a time. And people would get really angry at us and be like, where is it? Like, why aren't you guys working on this? Like it says on the Trello. And the issue is, again, that things just take a really, really long time. And game development is also really complex, especially because it's a team of people, right? So when Petrify is modeling a weapon, it may be a couple months later that I'm able to actually implement that model into the game. Now, in the Trello, we would say when Petrify was modeling, put it in progress. But then it would stay in progress for a long time, obviously. And our like switch over and responsibilities wasn't replicated in that at all. And I think that's a big reason why people weren't totally understanding of what was happening. But it's also just not sustainable for us to report to the community in that way. I know from my end as like a manager, it's really hard to even have or to like keep full track of what everyone is working on at any given time. So expecting us to be able to do that for everyone that plays Bad Business is just way too much, and it puts a lot of pressure on the contractors as well. I want them to be able to work on their things at the pace that we've agreed upon, which is usually pretty lenient because we're trying to be very good for our people as well. But I also don't want them to be getting stressed by having to rush things along because the community wants it now, or that they need to change things because the community is responding to the leak and saying this shouldn't be the way that it is. So we don't really have plans for a Trello to come back. I, again, want to do the live streams to kind of supplement this, though. And I think that was working pretty well and will continue to work pretty well, where it's very visible. It's something that can be clipped and spread around very fast as well. But it doesn't really get into the intricacies of management necessarily. It's mostly just like a visual reminder for people that we are in fact working. We haven't just dropped something, and they can see very clearly the amount of time that it takes me to do something as well. I mean, I imported a few guns on stream now, and all of them have taken, I think it takes an average of 3 to 4 hours as well. So at least this gives a little bit more transparency in that way. But yeah.
Speaking about Twitch and stuff, though, are you planning on, like, what is going to be your schedule for streaming? Like, do you plan on streaming like once a week, twice a week, maybe even 3 times? I don't know. Like, what is your overall schedule for it?
The goal is 3 times a week. I think that is the sweet spot. In the Twitch streaming world, you know, there's a lot of streamers that are getting on for 8 hours a day every single day. And obviously that's not going to be me. But I also think that it's really hard to grab people's attention with just one stream a week, especially when I'm only doing 4 hours at a time. So the goal is 3 streams a week, 4 hours at a time. And I'm trying to model that in a way that doesn't really interfere that much with my personal life. But I have sort of been working on scheduling my days to be a little bit later now, just so that I can stream from like 4 p.m. EST to 8 p.m. EST, basically. And yeah, I don't have like an exact schedule right now, but that's kind of the idea. That's what I'm working towards.
Now, this is a question that I'm actually really excited about for an answer. Do you have any plans to do any collabs with other games in the future, similar to how you did Phantom Forces, or maybe on a much bigger scale?
Absolutely. We have one collaboration that's kind of been in the works for a little bit and is really mostly just like trying to figure out a good time to slot it into both of our game schedules. But I think that it provides a really good opportunity for people to look at the game that otherwise may not have, or have played it a long time in the past and haven't really given another thought since then. But it's really on me in order to find the best way of doing that, and it's really difficult to collaborate with another game since they have their own schedule and their own teams and their own workflows. But I would absolutely love to do more.
And I think that would be great. I feel like, personally, the one I would love to see would be aim blocks, because, you know, I play both games. And I've seen you tweet out about aim blocks, like the whole punching the ground thing. Like, I thought that was cool, so I figured that might be
It's a great mechanic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. My next question that we have here is, what kind of different things can we expect to see now that we have a new programmer?
We've already sort of seen a different vibe to Squirrel, right, compared to before. A great example is the April Fool's update, which was the fake stock market. People really loved that, and that was entirely Squirrel's doing, except for the outfits, which was Susie, obviously, and the charm was Popstar. So there was some collaboration there, but it was very much Squirrel's update in that way. and was received very, very well. He's just like a really funny guy, obviously, and I think he's also extremely creative and very passionate about the game. Screw has been a part of Rudev communities for a really long time, like before even Bad Business. And he also was a moderator for Bad Business for a little bit, and then ended up becoming our friend and now our coworker as well. And so he's very like personally close to the game, and he has a lot of love for the game as well. Not that L didn't, obviously, but the amount of effort that he is putting in towards new features specifically is really great. And there's just like a little bit of like extra energy that's being added to the team, which is bleeding into all of our work as well. Like, I think a lot of the updates from this year have been really, really good so far. And I think that that is in no small part due to Squirrel's addition to the team. But in terms of like actual things that he's going to be working on, he is going to be doing the progression revamp. The UI in general is going to get like massively changed over the course of the next year. We've been wanting to do that for a long time, and Roblox has a feature that has just been broken for a long time that we unfortunately have not been able to bypass, basically. But they just recently posted saying that it should be fixed soon. So
That's great.
yeah, there's a light at the end of the tunnel, hopefully, for that, and we'll be able to work on that more. But yeah, he also just works at a really fast pace. I mean, we had been talking about porting the grenade physics from our other project to Bad Business for a really long time. And for a variety of reasons, we hadn't done it yet. But then when he came in, he managed to do it in like an extraordinarily short amount of time. Even like any of the big projects that I give him, he says something is going to take a long time, and it takes like 5 days or like a week. And that's just extremely fast. I know in his brain, insane. I know in his brain it's like maybe a slow project, but it's still at a pace that is really great for us. So I think that more new game functions in general are able to be added a lot more frequently now. New things for like individual weapons as well. Like, we had been testing a grenade launcher weapon, and we've also been testing like a railgun type weapon, both of which required some programming in order to make work, and also in order to make us capable of balancing those things, right? And he's done like amazing work at getting all of that ready for us, basically, for when it is going to be relevant or when we're ready to actually work on it.
You know, you went into the UI a little bit, and I had this question saved a little bit later, but I might as well ask it now. Do you think we'd ever be able to fully customize our like HUDs or UIs, whatever, to our personal liking? Like, maybe if I wanted to move the kill feed from being top right all the way to bottom left, or, you know, something like that.
It depends on Roblox functionality, because obviously we don't work on the engine, and so there's some possible limitations there, because Bad Business is playable on 4K TV screens as well as like iPhone 8s, right? And so because of that, there might be certain things that need to be set in place and immovable, like just to make it work across the board, because we can't reliably make UI for consoles versus phones. It needs to work for everything, really. But I mean, I might be talking out of turn here, but I'm pretty sure that the reason why we want to use the new systems, the features that have previously been broken, actually, is that they could be more customizable in that way, and that those UI elements could be more independent from each other, basically, and be adaptable per device a lot easier. I think that's why they had done those features in the first place. So I think it'd be really cool. I think simply moving your UI around, or your HUD specifically, would be really great. I don't know about more customization from there. And even then, that is a lot of programming work and a pretty fundamental change to how the UI works right now, to the point where it might not be very doable, but it's something we'll definitely be looking into.
How do you plan on doing social media advertising for the game? Because I know you talked about it a little bit on stream, you know, just like even in the Discord and stuff like that. So I was just curious to see what your tactics are for it.
I don't know very specific tactics because I think it's something that you kind of just learn by doing. I know that the guiding philosophy is going to be to diversify where you can find bad business content, though, because right now we exist entirely on Discord and Twitter. And Discord is good, but it is a gated community, which isn't great for discoverability. And Twitter is not doing great. There was the recent announcement, I guess not so recent anymore, but there was the announcement that non-verified creators won't be on the For You page anymore, which is the default page people look at. That obviously is going to be a huge detriment to our ability to spread information and find potential new, like, interested people. And we're obviously not going to be supporting Twitter by paying them money. That'd be stupid. And so the idea is that we'll kind of lessen our dependence on Twitter. We'll probably still be posting on Twitter, but just not as focused on that alone, and instead post on YouTube with shorts, TikTok as well, and then obviously more Twitch streams, which are very helpful. I recently created a bad business subreddit. There was already one, but it didn't have a great name, and we weren't like controlling it, so it was hard to endorse it unless anything crazy happened. And so, yeah, we're just gonna try and like spread bad business around in a lot of different corners of the internet, and hopefully it catches on a little bit better. Luckily, we have Petrify on our team as a contractor right now, but I already know that he is wanting to be helpful in our pursuit of capturing interest elsewhere on the internet. And yeah, so really just like learning by doing, but overall not just going to be on 2 platforms only.
Do you plan on releasing more game modes into Bad Business, something like Cranked or Uplink as an example?
Yeah, absolutely. I think game modes are one of the best ways of adding variety to gameplay. Right now, despite the work that we did in the 3.0 update, we didn't get game modes to be as customizable and as easily customizable as I had wanted. So we're kind of laying the groundwork and slowly starting to work on modifiers for existing modes so that we can easily change the maximum health value, for example, for all of the modes in the game, which would basically allow us to have these special like 100 HP game modes for TDM or Koth or Domination or whatever. We also have a lot of ideas for specific game modes, some of which might be limited time, some of which might start out as limited time and then become like full-time, I guess, game modes. One that I've talked about a lot is like a paintball mode. I think would be really fun, especially because Bad Business originally started as a paintball game. And yeah, so we have a lot of ideas. Because that takes programming work, though, that is essentially taking away from other features that we're developing at any given time. And it's no small task in order to make new game modes either. That's kind of why we really want to do the modifiers, because in that situation, we would be able to add in new ones, or at least twists on existing ones, and not have to depend on Squirrel to be hands-on as much in that way. But again, that's a little ways away. I think for the foreseeable future, we'll be seeing more limited time modes at the very least.
Would you ever consider expanding upon Bad Business. You know, maybe make a different spin-off game, like a Bad Business Zombies game or a Bad Business Battle Royale or something like that. Because I know we have Operation Unicorn, and a lot of people I know really like that mode, myself included. So I would like to see something at least done with that.
Yeah. So Operation Unicorn itself can't really be built upon. uh, it is a relic of its time. If you go play it right now, you can even see that it's pre multiple nerf insta heal, and in general, it's just running off of a fork, is what it's called, of an old version of Bad Business. So we can port that into a new version of Bad Business. It'll still be a fork though, which is difficult to work with no matter what. In terms of creating like a whole dedicated mode for it, we have some things in the works that are similar. I'm not really going to talk about it because it's something that members of my team are kind of leading the charge on, and I'm more focused on other things within Redev, specifically like figuring out what our next big project is going to be after, or not necessarily after, kind of during Bad Business as well, but an additional game for us to be working on, basically. And that is the size of this task, though, when we're talking about it, is basically a whole new game. And the truth is that although we all love Bad Business, we also need to flex our creative muscles in some other directions, because Bad Business is, at least for me, the only thing I've been working on for the past 4 years now. We're actually really, really close to our 4-year anniversary. And again, I like Bad Business a lot, and I'm fully dedicated to continue my work on it, but still need some changes. And so the idea of working on basically a new game, but it's still being Bad Business, is a little boring to me in its current state.
Mm-hmm.
Not to say that it won't ever happen, because it may, and not to say that not to say that every single idea necessarily has to be the size of a new game, but a lot of them are. The Battle Royale topic is one that we've heard of a lot, and to be quite frank, I think that a Bad Business Battle Royale would be really fun as well. But kind of like what we were talking about earlier in terms of splitting up the player base, we just don't have one that could cater to the size of Battle Royale right now. And I'm also worried about cannibalizing our own game, which is why the next game that we work on probably won't be a shooter either, and why a Battle Royale would be a little dangerous, where even if a Bad Business Battle Royale does really well in the beginning, it's still taking players away from the main game no matter what, and that could really kind of disturb our existing players and their like playing habits, and it's just kind of not worth it for us to take the risk right now in that way.
Would something, let's say, I've seen like leaks before. It looked like it was like for an arena type game mode where you could like pick up weapons off of something, I think is what it was. Would I be able, well, I'm not saying me, because I definitely can't do that, but maybe someone like in the community could make a large scale map and use that system to make like a battle royale type mode if they wanted to.
Yeah, I think that would be fairly doable. We need to make changes to the custom game mode system right now to better support the existing amount of game modes, because it's still using like, I think that you only set King of the Hill. I don't even know if you set Domination. And obviously like spawns for TDM.
Yeah.
And everything else. But there's not a lot in the way right now for it to support more game modes, and we have to definitely improve upon that. But I think theoretically that would be possible, yeah.
Yeah. And like speaking about like, you know, players making things and whatever, would custom player content ever be considered to be added into the main game? Is that something that you could even do?
I don't know. It's a really tough topic. We're actually going through the motions right now of possibly adding in some content made by a community member.
It's the
The
hair,
issue
right?
is, yeah.
Yeah, I saw that. It looks great.
However, we have already hit some roadblocks because it's just really difficult to. I'm trying to think how to word it, but there's certain liabilities when you're running something as a company, and when your product or your game, your service is bringing in enough money to run a company. You have to really vet everything, and you have to make sure that things are not going to screw over all the people that are working for you as well. And so one big issue is that we need to have everyone sign a contract when they work on the game or when they sell something to the game, because that contract has to be there so that the ownership of those assets get legally transferred to Rudev or to me. The issue is that if you are under the age of 18, you cannot be treated as a person who can decide that themselves, right? You can't consent to giving away your assets in that way, and your signature ultimately is not valid unless it is backed up by a parent's signature as well, which is already many steps harder and more complicated than just having someone who's 18 be able to sign their name and agree to things. There's also matters of, generally speaking, when you are buying individual items from a contractor, it's going to cost more than just doing it yourself. There's some situations where you just can't do it yourself. Maybe you're not the artist that the contractor is, or whatever variety of reasons, right? But it's still generally a little bit more expensive, and we don't work that into our budget right now because it's kind of just like an extra thing. It doesn't really make sense to pay our full-time people less, basically, right? So that we can buy hairs from community members consistently. And so those sorts of things are all coming out of my pocket personally. And I like it because it does add things to the game. But I only have so much of my own money that I want to spend on bad business. I still want to live my life otherwise. So not only are there logistical issues with all of it, but it's also just expensive and my own money that is going to have to pay for that sort of thing. And the reason why we have to pay as well is so that we can do that transfer of ownership and have a transaction there, basically. I don't know. Logistically, it's just really hard. It's not that it's impossible. And again, actually actively trying that right now. But some of those logistical issues are coming in the way already. And I've already had to message in communities with other Roblox developers, being what do I do here? And has anyone dealt with something like this before? And it's just tough.
That makes sense. It does, because you don't want to fall into a situation where you can get the whole company in trouble with something, so it makes sense why you wouldn't be able to do something like that. But my next question would be, this is for all the bigger content creators of the game. Do you plan on giving creators more tools to negate stream sniping / targeting? I was talking to Petrify about this because, me and him mostly stream the game and we deal with this problem all the time. And one of the ideas that we were talking about was getting a whole separate account, while that, I'll play on a whole new account. No one will know what that account is and stuff like that. Anything I do on that account will transfer over to my main. But I think the problem with that is I think it would just be so hard to the point that I don't even think it would be worth doing. But yeah, I don't know. I just wanted to get your take on that.
So I'm not totally sure on our capabilities. There were some things that have been told to me in the past that turned out not to be true in development. So I'm not going to speak out of turn in that way. I don't know if we can link data in that way using Roblox's systems, which is what the game is built off of, right? I think that would be great if we could, but I'm really just not sure. And you're right. Even if it is possible, how much work that would take, I'm not totally confident in either. And it might be just too much for us to work on. I would like to do an outfit randomizer at some point, which is kind of like a bare minimum thing. I don't think that it's going to totally fix the issue. Like, I think it's pretty easy for someone to look at a stream and see the gun that you're using and then listen for that gun, right? Unless you're using an AK and the rest, or an XK and the rest of the server is using XKs as well. But I still think that it would help a little bit at least, and we should do it. That shouldn't take a lot of work. There are some things that I want to do that are limiting that right now. And once I can speed those things along in development, it'll be a lot easier for us to do. So that's good. But in terms of other tools, still not totally sure. But, you know, there's the featured creator chat in the Bad Business Discord that you can always bring up like ideas to in there and see what my takes are. Because I try and respond to things pretty often when they're posted in my direction.
Let's see here. Are collective community events such as getting 1 million kills with grenades or something along those lines for like mastery outfits or camos where like as the rewards or something, is that something you're interested in doing, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. We have ideas for a challenge system revamp. I feel like I say revamp so often all the time, but that's because Bad Business is just in a constant state of iteration, as we've shown for the past 4 years. I mean, the game is completely different now than it was 4 years ago. It's even quite different now than it was 2 years ago. So we definitely want to offer up more challenges, better challenges, weekly challenges that would offer up perhaps different rewards, maybe some credits would be cool, as well as XP. And then monthly challenges that are community events, I think would be really cool. The issue there is just slotting it into our current workflow so that we can create that content at a quick enough pace and still have it be something that people want to work towards. I think that it should come as no surprise to people that we've struggled a little bit with the increased workload of legendaries being added into the game. We found them to be extremely impactful in terms of our earnings and in terms of just like offloading some of the credits that people have built up over a long period of time, which is really important to us. So we can't stop doing that necessarily at this point. And it's a big reason why we felt it was necessary for us to go down to monthly updates. But adding in a new thing that everyone's working towards throughout the month is a little bit difficult in that way. Just so that we can actually deliver on it.
Yeah.
It's something that we would probably need to have done in advance, and there's other free things that I think are taking more priority in our minds right now to work on, like an achievement like badge system, the Roblox badges doubling as achievements for the game, some of which are easy and some of which are hard to get, but all of which have like in-game rewards as a result, whether it's weapon skins or outfits or even some legendaries. I think would be really cool. But I think that would feel a little bit better and more impactful to the individual player experience, and like we were talking about earlier, help the grind a little bit by just giving people more things to do and more things to work towards. So So yeah, I think it's something that we want to do. I just don't know exactly when.
Yeah, and speaking about grind and stuff like that, this is going to be the last of my personal questions that I have. Uh, but building off the grind and things for people to grind, is Hue the last of the mastery camos, or are you planning on adding more in the future?
The holdup with that is one that we need to add in the guns so that people can actually get it, because I don't think that we're at the weapons yet. We're very close to a 125, but not quite yet. The holdup there is that Damascus as a texture sucks right now. We're like not at all happy with it. I'm personally not at all happy with it. I don't think it's something that is like very worth grinding necessarily. And I would like to change the texture for it before we add in something new. Whether that something new is another Damascus skin or not, I just feel like we kind of owe it to the community to fix that first. It's not that we're going to take away this texture, though. Obviously, if you have this texture right now, you will always be able to use it. We'll have backwards compatibility in that way. You'll be able to choose, right? But it's still really important for me to fix that first. And I don't know exactly how we're going to go about that yet. Obviously, it costs money for us to do something like that. And I've been looking. I'm on the lookout for a great Damascus material that doesn't cost a stupid amount of money and that can be used in a commercial product. But that turns out to be a very specific thing, and finding something that also fits the style of the game can be a little bit difficult. And the other alternative there is obviously getting it custom made, but that will be even more expensive. So yeah, just trying to figure out the best way of doing it, and it's in the back of my mind because it's not super pressing right now, but it's definitely something that we want to expand upon.
One of the first questions that I saw a lot was revolving around the HP in game. A lot of people were confused on why you went with 150 rather than 100, and I saw a lot of suggestions for a 100 HP game mode. Is that something you're interested in doing?
Yeah, absolutely. We definitely want to do 100 HP game modes. I think it would be a great middle ground for people that want a faster time to kill in bad business, but are unhappy with the time to kill that it is currently. But 150 HP doesn't necessarily relate, or it doesn't like cause our time to kill to be longer. I think that's a common misconception. But the reason why it doesn't is because we enter in all of the damage numbers ourselves. Like, it's not something where these are real bullets that are being simulated in some weird physical way that inexplicably are doing the damage that they're doing. If I wanted the game to be a significantly faster time to kill, I wouldn't need to change the health values to 100. I would be able to just make the guns do more damage. The reason why we do 150 HP, though, is more to give some lenience in terms of weapon balancing and in terms of our ability to create specific time to kills for weapons, right? So when you have less numbers to choose from, when you have 50 less digits, basically, you're limited by those 50 less numbers in terms of just the fact that, a gun doing one more damage in that situation will statistically lead to more breakpoints because there's just less numbers to choose from. This is like a very game developer-y thing. That is why we do the 150 HP. But it's ultimately just to provide a little bit more lenience in terms of how we're working on the game, specifically for me, but also to like make guns a little bit more varied in their balancing and whatnot. I personally like games with longer time to kills. I mean, I say that, and Overwatch 2 is like a game that I play a lot, right? um, I've been playing Tracer right now, which everything one shots basically. So that's just not fun. I would much prefer any game to have longer time to kill, but I recognize that that isn't great for new players. New players generally just need a shorter time to kill in order to do better. And Bad Business specifically is also a really fast game and with characters that are skinnier than some of our counterparts. And so because of that, it's just harder. I don't think that our 150 HP time to kill is too bad, but again, I think a 100 HP game mode or multiple game modes in that format is like a great middle ground there where we can kind of satisfy everyone with that. And also, I think that that is a really great way of creating diversity in your weapon loadouts because there's no doubt that certain guns are going to be way better in 100 HP game mode than in 150 HP like standard modes. In fact, some may be too good that we have to make balance changes dedicated to 100 HP game mode. Like there's definitely some snipers that do like 110 torso damage and would become very broken in a 100 HP game mode context. I'm not totally sure how we're going to solve that necessarily yet, but yeah, definitely have plans for it.
Will there be any more future gun perks?
Yes. We don't have plans right now for more universal weapon perks. I think that the roster that we have right now is pretty good. But having ones that cater to specific weapon classes and specific playstyles, I think would be good. Like how FMJ right now is kind of specifically tailored to rifles, and I think it's on snipers too. It would make sense for it to be. Having other weapon perks in that way would be good. But again, I don't think that we have a lot of ideas right now, at least, for weapon perks that would be good for every gun in the game.
Do you plan on adding more movement tech to the game, such as super jumping, like as an example?
Well, super jumping is a funny thing because it is kind of a glitch. It's a glitch that we cannot reasonably fix without really messing with the game, really drastically changing the game in ways that would do far more damage, I think, than super jumping existing would do.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I'm a believer in, like, when you're mapping out a game on paper, it's cool. But what's really cool is when your players find things in the game that they can, I don't mean to say abuse, but like that they can take advantage of and kind of like create metas of their own in that way. And those things just happen naturally. So I don't really have any plans to add in new tech in that way. In fact, there was a point in time when we wanted to add in new tech, movement tech, into the game, and then people figured out how to super jump, and it basically was what we had wanted anyways in some form. And we just never really felt like there was a need to go back to something like that as a result.
Yeah.
Like I was talking about earlier, though, the game's already really fast, and that is very hard for new players to cope with. And so creating more opportunities for fast movement in that way isn't necessarily planned. But like I was talking about earlier with the like force of nature or ash shotgun type equipment, I think having equipment that allows for that ability would be a lot better. It would allow us more opportunities for balance, and yeah, so I think you could probably see more stuff like that in the form of equipment, but nothing in terms of like more super jumping.
Okay. What specific changes would you like to implement to make snipers a more viable option?
Did you ask me this question before? Because I'm about to say a hot take, and I don't know what I said before. But
Yeah, I did ask this question before, and I also made a little note here. It says mention bullet velocity. I don't really remember too much about it, but yeah.
yeah, I mean, in terms of mentioning bullet velocity, I think that having different bullet velocities per sniper is better. We actually did that in the last update. We added in 3 variations of bullet velocity per weapon class. They are not necessarily added to every weapon yet. It was really mostly for the GLK, and I was just doing it at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
But the way that is going to work is you can have like a fast rifle bullet velocity and a slow rifle bullet velocity, and they're like a little bit different. Not a lot, but still. But my personal hot take would be to add in like a frost grenade that like slows people a little bit, because I really think that the biggest issue with snipers is just that people can go crazy fast, and there's no way of stopping that, basically.
Yeah.
Of course, that is extremely controversial, and I don't know exactly how best to manage that necessarily, but that's what I would want as like a sniper.
Hey, you got my vote, man. I love that idea.
Yeah.
This is a question that someone that works for you could have just asked you themselves, but, wanted me to ask it in this interview anyway. Do you have any plans to add a clan system into the game?
In terms of the previous thing that we were talking about with ranked, I think a clan system basically fulfills a lot of the needs that ranked would. Or not a lot of the needs, but similar vibes, basically. It would provide something for people to match up with their friends as well. It's social inherently. It's competitive inherently. So there's a lot of benefits to it. It's just a really daunting task, I think. And so in order for us to do something like that, it would take a lot of work, and it's just not on the schedule right now. But I think looking at the next year, seeing how things pan out, seeing if we do end up adding in pro servers at any point, and then seeing if maybe there's some integration that could be done there. I could see a situation where it gets added, but again, pretty far down the road, I think.
And you mentioned like playing with friends and things like that, so that goes hand in hand with this next question that I got. Will we ever see a party up system in the game?
I would love to. I'm not totally sure if it will be best for the game, at least right now. There's a lot of arguments for and against it. Some of the arguments against it is that it'll basically provide ways for one-sided matches to occur way more frequently. My counter to that is that they already happen pretty frequently because there's no skill-based matchmaking, which is its own huge topic and not something I'm super interested in anyways. But in terms of some things for it, I think from a business sense, it just makes sense to, encourage people to invite their friends to the game, and then hopefully their friends stick around and really like the game. And also, I mean, in my own experience, like one of my closest friends and I played a little bit of Redfall recently, and that game is terrible.
Yes.
But it was like a fun time. It was like a fun time because I was playing with my friend.
Yeah.
And that's just like a testament to the fact that if you're playing with friends, that you're just going to have a good time no matter what. And probably even in good games, you're going to have a better time. So, again, I would love to do it. I'm not totally sure if everyone would love it. And it's just like a delicate thing because I definitely don't want to destroy our community with it. And I think it's a feature that actually like has that potential, which is scary. But right now, the biggest limitation and the reason why we haven't done it is not for either of those, or not for any of like the reasons that people are against it, but more just that there's nowhere on the main menu right now that we can fit it, which is why I talked about earlier needing to redo the UI. A huge aspect of that is the main menu and making it something that we can build upon and add in some of the features that we want to add in, and definitely draw attention to things that don't get a lot of attention right now. And one of those things might be inviting your friends and like partying up.
Now, one of my last few questions I got here for you is, what do you see the game looking like in a few years?
In a few years, I think Bad Business will hopefully be just like a really polished version of what we have right now. I want there to be more things to do, more things to unlock, obviously. I want us to continue to iterate on our live service and, you know, make sure that we're constantly engaging people and getting new people in as well. I think that the team on Bad Business might look a little bit different than we do now, just because, as I talked about earlier, we want to work on something new as well. And I think a lot of our people will probably be interested in that. So we'll have maybe a smaller team on Bad Business at that point, but I can only imagine that I'm still going to have my hands in the game to some degree, and I'm sure that the others will want that as well. But yeah, again, I hope it's just like a really good version of what we have now, and I hope that it offers a lot of variability within gameplay as well. I think we've slowly been getting to that point, but we're not there yet.
Yeah.
And I want people to be able to play Bad Business and feel like they're like playing on a playground, right? And there's all these like fun things around that they can mess with. And in fact, every single thing that they could mess with, they could mess with differently as well. That's kind of the dream of Bad Business, is that it's the playground FPS.
My last question for you, and then I'll, stop interrogating you. What do you want people to take away from this interview?
I just want people to realize that all the developers are like human beings.
Yeah, you guys are not robots.
Yeah, and there's a lot of aspects to that. One is obviously that we work on things that we want to work on. We also make mistakes sometimes. I'll be the first to admit that the last update has a particularly broken gun in it, which I'm looking to address very soon. But, I'm still like a human being. I'm still taking my weekends, relax. I mean, last week in particular, I took most of it to relax. I still did some work, obviously, but I wasn't streaming just because I had worked all weekend getting the update out as well. And it's just, like, obviously really draining, and I knew that I needed to take some time for myself after all that. There was a tweet recently that I thought was really funny, where it was basically like, when one AAA developer calls out sick, they're like, okay, we have 30 other people that can do this job. And also, I mean, this game is like months out of the way, right? So it doesn't even matter. But when like one developer in an indie studio calls out sick, everything is halted basically. Because everyone depends on each other so much more, and each person's work is so important to the end goal that it's extremely difficult to continue on. And so Bad Business has 4 full-time people and a rotating team of contractors that are part-time. And so, like, this week, 2 of our people are sick, which is fine and good. That I at least am able to still continue to do a lot of my work. But obviously that's going to affect our schedule. That's going to affect the update process. That crossover I was talking about. There's all of these things that are being affected when one of us gets called out, or 2 of us gets called out, basically. And so yeah, we're all just doing our best, but I don't know. We're not robots.
Yeah.
So,
well, that will conclude the interview. Thank you for doing this again, Ethan. Can't believe I have to say again, dude. I'm literally living up to my scuffed YouTuber name. Crazy.
well, this time it went really, really well. So,
Yeah, I think it actually turned out way better this time around than the first time.